back to another episode of Pizza and Parsecs. I'm Dave.
I'm Liv.
And today we're going to be bringing you another Star Wars episode.
Woo!
You're so enthusiastic about these prequels.
I don't like the prequels. I'm sorry.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I didn't like the prequels. I like the new ones.
I'm glad you like something.
I like the originals.
Again, glad you like something.
And the new ones remind me more of the originals. Anyway,
today,
talking about Attack of the Clones.
Yes. We're going to be talking about Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones.
For this movie, going into it, we're coming on the tails of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Right.
We know that we're going to be getting more Star Wars
after
Phantom Menace because we have to fill that gap between Episode 1 and A New Hope. Right? So, Attack of the Clones is coming our way. What's your relationship with this movie?
It's not as exciting as it was when Phantom Menace came out for me. Because at this point, I'm like 11, 12 years old. I'm going into the preteen, age. I've made like a very committed decision that I'm going to really focus on my dancing. Still homeschooled, I'm still focusing in school, but dancing has become a huge priority in my life. I know that this is a career I want. I had just switched studios a couple years prior. I was more interested in the Harry Potter franchise because those movies were coming out as well. We were given Sorcerer's Stone, and in the same year that Attack of the Clones came out, we got Chamber of Secrets. So I was more focused on the Harry Potter side of things.
You were neck deep in Hogwarts.
I would say knee deep because it was just the first two of what they were already planning, 8 movies.
Okay.
Yeah. By that point, I don't even think Goblet of Fire book had come out yet. Like J.K. Rowling was still writing the books. The movies were just playing catch up.
See, I wasn't allowed to read the books, so Harry Potter escaped me at that age.
It's okay, I educated you.
This is true. Had I known what was to come 15, 20 years later, I wouldn't have felt so left out.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, at that time, was fully invested in Star Wars. If you haven't listened to our Phantom Menace episode, you'll know that I am a diehard fan, unapologetically, of the Phantom Menace. And
I'm not.
I was fired up for episode 2. I will say that this didn't have as big of an impact on me as Phantom Menace did. It's hard to match the hype behind the Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. We only had to wait like 3 years for Attack of the Clones to come out. But I was still really, really excited for it. We get to see an adolescent, an older teenager, Anakin Skywalker. We get to see Obi-Wan with long hair.
We get to see more Mace Windu with no hair. No, try and make jokes.
Yeah. So we get somebody that looks a lot like Boba Fett did, which was super exciting because I was a big fan of Boba Fett. But all these cool characters, they're all grown up, and we get to continue building the universe. We get to continue building the story, and that was really, really exciting for me because, I love this stuff.
Yeah. I think I was just riding the, excitement coattails. My family was excited, so in turn, I was excited because, again, it was a chance for us to go to the movies. I didn't dislike this one as much as I disliked Phantom Menace.
Okay.
I enjoyed this one a little bit more, but still kind of sucked.
Okay, so I guess let's dive into the movie.
Okay.
And start talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, what worked for you, what didn't. You say it sucks. Why does it suck?
Well, I didn't really like the whole love story kind of being the forefront of Anakin and Padme's storyline. I know that we need that development. I know we all know, spoiler alert, if you haven't, what are you doing listening to this if you haven't seen the Star Wars franchise at all? We know Anakin is Darth Vader. Yes. We know that Padme Amidala is Luke and Leia's mother. Yes, because Luke ends up going to Tatooine, and we know Padme goes off to Alderaan. See, we know we have to have the storyline develop, but it was kind of just creepy. It was just kind of gross creepy because we know it's 10 years between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. We know that they're 10 years older, so that means Anakin is 19 and Padme is 21, 22?
24.
Okay, 24. Because she was 14.
They have a 5-year difference.
Okay, so she's 24. Not as creepy of an age gap as 9 and 14. Like when you're 9 and 14, that's kind of like a weird dating pool. But like when you're 19 and 24, it's like different. And we see that Anakin still is infatuated with Padme. But it's creepy and gross. Like he looks at her and looks angry half the time, and she takes that as affectionate. And I'm like, you gross. You nasty. It just is weird. And I don't like how that was like the focus. And there's this obvious attempt to build this like tension between them. So that way when they first kiss, it's awkward. And then when they kiss right before the like execution, it's like passionate. And they're like, I really do love you. It's not, no, it's just weird. It's just weird. I felt weird. I feel like everyone else feels weird. It's not okay. Okay. That's one of the things I don't like. Cutscenes, better. Much better. Gave me Star Wars vibes because it was less choppy and they kind of dissolved it the same way that we see in 4, 5, and 6. I don't know. I think it was really just the like love crap that I didn't like in Ewan McGregor's hair.
That love crap.
Yeah, well, I'm at this point I'm like 12. I'm a dancer and I'm having to wear like leotard and tights, so I'm like girly in that aspect. But when I was 12, I was like a tomboy. I liked to wear cargo shorts and t-shirts, playing, on my skateboard or scooter. I had brothers. Most of the kids in the neighborhood were boys. We played touch football. Like, it was just, I didn't really find love attractive. It was kind of like, ew, gross. Still, when I was 12 years old. It's like, ew, gross. He's 19 and she's 24. They're old. I don't know. I just didn't like it. It made me feel uncomfortable because it was, he gives creepy vibes.
So there's a weird school of thought, and I can't remember where I read this, but there's this weird theory that he's manipulating her through the Force to fall in love with him.
That's disgusting.
I don't like that theory.
It makes sense.
But when you watch it like that, and when you know that, it's hard to not see that.
It makes sense.
In a way. I doubt that was the intention, and I doubt that's the message we're supposed to receive from there.
Now I'll never look at it the same.
He does give her some pretty creepy looks in this. I think their relationship does the job that it's supposed to, setting him up to drive him farther away from the Jedi Order. How do you drive a wedge in between a Jedi and the Jedi Order? Give him something that he wants more. For me, I feel like
they're not allowed to have relationships.
Exactly, and I feel like Palpatine has a lot to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Manipulating Anakin in order to accomplish that, because he's the one that suggests for Anakin to be Padme's bodyguard in this, to like go with her to Naboo.
Right, fully knowing that he has feelings for her.
Exactly. He wants to pour gasoline on that fire.
Right.
And that in turn will help drive that wedge in between him and the Jedi Order to set him up to say, have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I just think it's really cool because I don't really look at the love story. I look at the manipulation that Palpatine is setting in motion from behind the scenes. In Attack of the Clones, it's easier to kind of draw the relationship, the connection between, Palpatine's like acting a little sketchy here.
Right.
You start seeing those things. He's becoming a little more brazen, I guess, and explicit with certain things that just kind of make you raise an eyebrow like, oh, that was interesting. And you get your first like actual in-person shot of Darth Sidious in this as well. So you're actually able to get a close-up of his face, or at least his chin.
Right.
And his mouth. So you get a little bit of that there. The music is also starting to draw a big connection here between the two of them. They're both very distinctive. Like every time, or it may not be every time, but frequently we would cut to Palpatine and it would have Darth Sidious's theme going on in the background.
Yeah.
Basically, that seed is starting to grow. Palpatine is likely Darth Sidious.
Right.
Pulling the strings from the background. Also, going into this, we know that we're going to be getting another apprentice. In Phantom Menace, one thing that we didn't talk about was when Yoda says, always two there are, validating the Sith rule of two.
Right.
Always has a master and apprentice, one that has the power and one that craves it.
Right.
So we know we're going to get another apprentice, and we find that apprentice as Darth Tyrannus or Count Dooku, which is played by Christopher Lee, which I thought That was super cool. Super fired up to see him because I love Man with the Golden Gun. I love Lord of the Rings. He's a brilliant actor. It was really cool to put him in an apprentice type role. Together, the two of them are pulling the strings, and we start to see this overarching plot that the Emperor is setting in motion, which is really cool. And to rule from the shadows, to put these sinister plans from the shadows. Basically find out that he's orchestrating this entire war.
Right.
Like, he's setting the Separatists up with their droid army, and he's also setting the Republic up with their clone army, and pitting them against each other. And that's really, really awesome. When you first see the clone army on Kamino, and they're all lined up, and they're getting on these Star Destroyers, in my head, as I'm watching that through my teenage eyes at this point, I'm thinking, okay, how do we get from here to where these serve the Jedi, basically, to these kill the Jedi? What goes on in between there?
Right.
Like, there's a huge mystery at this point. I wanted to unwrap it. I was ready to unwrap that, and it was super, super cool. That was all the things that I saw, and I saw that part of that plot there was starting to plant that seed in Anakin to drive him away from the Jedi Order.
Gotcha. I, again, was younger when this came out and was just like, it wasn't until Revenge of the Sith did I actually start to formulate those kind of connections, I guess, because I was older when Revenge of the Sith came out. I was actually in high school. I was able to drive myself to the movie theater. I saw it multiple times. I was able to put those connections together. But as a 12-year-old kid who was more interested in witches and wizards than lightsabers and Jedis and Sith, I didn't put those connections together. Watching it again, I had a new appreciation for it, and I've watched it several times. I've watched this one more than I've watched Phantom Menace, because we all know how I feel about Phantom Menace. And I dislike this one less than Phantom Menace. I actually tolerate this one and feel less like, oh my gosh, when is it going to end? Or if I have to see Jar Jar Binks on the screen one more time, or if I have to look at that cutscene one more time, I'm going to walk out. It was more, I saw a connection in Attack of the Clones to the original trilogy more so than I saw a connection with Phantom Menace to the original trilogy. There were things said, there were things done, and there were things kind of hinted that tied those knots for later on.
Absolutely.
And I don't feel, like I mentioned in the podcast that we did about the Phantom Menace, I don't feel the Phantom Menace did that without being blatantly obvious that here's Anakin, here's the one big Captain tying knots over here.
Captain tying knots.
Not my chin, not my problem. That's what I say. But that's kind of where I see Attack of the Clones. It was this, oh, Phantom Menace wasn't received as well. The reviews, I mean, of course it was a Star Wars movie, and I can't sit here and say, like, the reviews, what were the reviews, because I don't remember them. I don't remember what people said about them. But most people hopped on the bandwagon of this was kind of a lamer movie. I feel like Attack of the Clones was, oh, we kind of messed up here. We kind of dropped the ball in this area. Let's fix it. And they did. I felt like there were more consistent things that happened in this movie that happened later. We actually see the plans for the Death Star. We see Anakin kind of like start this path of anger, which is a connection. And we see all these like little details that I prefer in these movies that make these connections to the original trilogy. But then they made Revenge of the Sith, and so this is my favorite of the three.
Okay.
I don't like Revenge of the Sith either, because I think it was a try-hard movie.
But yeah, I agree with you that this has more full circle things, to put it in your words.
Yes.
There's also some subtle callbacks to A New Hope in this as well. I think of when they're chasing that bounty hunter after the attempt on Padme's life on Coruscant. They basically chase this bounty hunter into the bar. And Obi-Wan is sitting at the bar. Anakin's stalking on the outside, searching for this bounty hunter. And you get the scene of this bounty hunter approaching. And quickly, Obi-Wan draws his lightsaber and cuts the bounty hunter's hand off. Just like in the cantina scene on Tatooine.
Yeah.
It was a subtle visual callback, but it also had a place in the story.
Right. If you rewind just a little bit more, we see Ewan McGregor pay subtle tribute to the original Ben Kenobi by doing subtle voice changes that sound like and kind of give me that Ben Kenobi vibe.
Right. I feel like he did start to capture the spirit that Alec Guinness put into that character.
Yeah, I liked that. That was something, another full circle moment that I really appreciated when watching, was like, oh, that's Ben. Like, because in the first one, we just see him as a Padawan. We see the beginning stages of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We don't see his kind of personality start to develop. He's still Qui-Gon's apprentice. And here we have him as Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's the same development as we go through and eventually see Ben Kenobi. And for him to have that subtle, like, character nod towards Ben was really nice. It's like the new Star Trek movies. The guy who's playing Captain Kirk studied the original Captain Kirk so he could have those same kind of characteristics and mannerisms. Ewan McGregor did a really good job of nodding to that every once in a while. I guess, like, I've mentioned the points that I don't really care for as far as the Attack of the Clones. And I could continue talking about the things that I did like, but I kind of want to hear some things that you didn't really like in Attack of the Clones. Unless you want me to tell you my next little, it's a small one, that what I didn't like.
I think you keep going.
Personally, I was not a big fan of the battle between Obi-Wan and Dooku and Anakin and Dooku. It wasn't until Yoda came in that my attention was grabbed because they were boring. We have Obi-Wan, who is this like epic swordsman at this point. You know, he's pretty awesome. He fights, and it's, you know, it's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. It's not Phantom Menace good, but it's not horrible. And then Dooku, within like 5 seconds, is like, hiya, hiya. And now Obi-Wan is down and out on the count. He can't stand up because his arm and his leg hurt from minor injuries. Well, also, Anakin is like, no, I'm gonna go after him now, being headstrong, like, doesn't wait and be patient for 5 seconds, gets zapped, and then moved over to the side and is like, that really hurt. I'm gonna lay here while my master gets hayad on the arm and on the leg, okay? And I'm like, all right, it's fine. Anakin then stands up and starts fighting, you know, and Obi-Wan's like, here, take my lightsaber. We're like, dope. Anakin's gonna fight with 2 lightsabers. Mind you, Anakin has already lost his lightsaber once and destroyed on accident his lightsaber. So the trend is just going to continue. What happens? Dooku breaks one of the lightsabers because Anakin is kind of on the clumsy side with these lightsabers. So they're fighting. I'm sorry, but it's not fighting when you're just standing there with the lightsaber behind your head but above your head at the same time. It's like they're holding it up, waiting to fight each other, just kind of like tap, tap. Tap, 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 cut your arm off, it's over. Like, I was so confused. But then Yoda comes in, and all of my opinions change. Because Yoda's dope. That's my opinion of the Obi-Wan and Anakin part of it that I didn't like.
It was a little anticlimactic. I thought it was cool that we get to see a more modern, and by modern, I mean modern made. Mm-hmm. So, you know, this is 2002. We get to see Force Lightning again.
Yeah.
This is the first time that we see when somebody uses Force Lightning, there is a way to have mastery over that. We see that first through Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he uses his lightsaber to absorb the lightning.
Right.
And then Yoda.
Right. This part's dope.
Yoda does it with his hand before sending it back to him. He straight up Kamehameha'd it back to Dooku.
Yeah.
And then Dooku fires off another round at him, and Yoda just like takes it, puts it in his pocket, saves it for later. Maybe it's a snack. I don't know. Before, we saw this insanely destructive power that Sidious unleashed on Luke and friendly fired Darth Vader.
Right. Which I never really understood that. Why didn't he just stop? Like, that's a whole other topic. But, like, why didn't he just stop? Could have just stopped. Turn it off.
Once you pop, the fun don't stop.
I'm just saying. Anyway, Yoda catches it. It's dope.
All that to say, I agree with you that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin fight against Dooku was a little anticlimactic. However, now that I have hindsight and know what that very first scene is in Revenge of the Sith, I'm more accepting of it. But at the time, when I saw that scene, I didn't really care for it as much.
Right.
I thought Dooku had an interesting looking lightsaber, had a little bit of a curved hilt. That was interesting.
I thought it was stupid.
You think all of these prequels are stupid?
Yeah, sort of. Meh.
So that's kind of what I hung on to while I was waiting for Yoda to come in.
Right.
And before I knew what I know in hindsight, that we're going to be getting a round 2.
Right. Well, and I think for me, we just had this really cool scene in the execution arena where we have Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan chained up to these pillars with these monsters coming at them. And they overcome these monsters for the most part before Jedi. Massive amount of Jedi all over the place. And one of my favorite scenes in that is when Mace Windu has his lightsaber to Jango Fett and is looking at Dooku. You still see more lightsabers popping up in the foreground of Dooku, and it's like catching your eye. These little like ping ping pings.
Yes, absolutely. Before we had only seen Jedi sporadically here and there. We had seen them all sitting in the same room together.
Right.
But they're not really doing anything. They're like, you must not train the boy. Or
right.
They're dark side clouds, everything.
Right. They're just sitting in this council room.
Exactly. It's the Jedi Council had a very political feel. The Jedi Order had a very political feel in the first movie.
Yeah.
And in this movie, we actually get to see a different side to it. We get to see the inner workings of the Jedi Order, the Jedi Academy. We get to see all those things. We get to see all of the Jedi out in full force in the gladiator scene. But I interrupted. Sorry.
It's okay. And so it was like this awesome moment with all of these Jedi. And then Dooku's like, guess what? I have a droid army that's gonna fight you. So then it's this huge battle between all these Jedis and all of these droids. And we're getting to kind of see these Jedi's techniques. We get to see all of this different training and all these different techniques on each side of things. So we get to actually see Mace Windu in action. We get to see all of these extra characters that have been on the council for so long in action. The only person we're missing, Yoda. Like, he's not there, which is fine. Like, he was busy going to get clones. He had to do his thing. But we're seeing all these really cool moments between all these Jedi. And then we have this actual Jedi on Sith fight. And it's like, well, that wasn't as cool as... Like, let's go back to all the really cool moments with these droids because that was pretty dope. Here we've got like pretty mediocre fighting until Yoda gets there. Because once Yoda gets there, I don't know how Dooku didn't just like throw in the towel and say, you know what, you too small and fast, I don't know what's going on. But like their fight was really dope and entertaining, but too short.
I want to keep talking about this side of the Jedi Order.
Okay.
Kind of the first big thing that we see in this movie of, the Jedi Temple, outside of, hallways and council rooms, is the archives.
Yeah.
They have a library. I like libraries. I like books. So do Jedi. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So we get to see that. We get to see Yoda training younglings using a blinder and a training droid.
Full circle moment.
Thought you'd appreciate that.
I did, but I think the younglings are cute, so I was distracted by the cuteness. They're like baby Yodas, but in different species. I
like the way that Yoda was portrayed in this as a teacher.
Yeah, he kind of gave me cool teacher vibes. Because we only know Yoda as like and I mean this in the most like endearing way, but this like old senile dude in the original trilogy. This like insane Rafiki type character, if you will. You know it right.
I can see it. He does seem senile, but he has this wisdom and just drops these nuggets out there.
Like nuggies?
Nuggies. He drops nuggies out there.
Chicken nuggies.
But in this, you get an energized and passionate teacher.
Right.
Obi-Wan walks into that room, and I was just in the archives. There should be a planet here, but there's not. And Yoda's like, hey guys, everybody laugh. Obi-Wan Kenobi lost the planet.
Yeah. I thought it was funny.
Like, Yoda's got a sense of humor. He's in relatively good spirits and stuff, because he's not...
Old. I mean, he's old, but not that old.
He's not worn down from the wars.
Right. And he's still in good spirits, even knowing and even feeling disturbances with Anakin, because he already is sensing these disturbances with Obi-Wan's Padawan, yet still being able to bring humor into Obi-Wan's life, who is stressed out.
Yes, he's still teaching and giving to these younglings, too. He's doing it in a very affectionate way. I get the feeling that he loves his job, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. You get a better feel of how the Jedi Order works.
Right.
And sort of the infrastructure of it, which I appreciated, getting to know the inner workings of things.
Yeah.
That's part of the reasons why I like Legends. It unpacks some things that we may not have had time to get to in the movies.
Right.
Like the Rule of Two.
Yeah. We're working on those with me.
Yeah.
Just started Clone Wars. Not to be confused with Attack of the Clones.
Nice point, babe. Another thing that's interesting with all of these prequel movies is the amount of politics that they bring into it.
Maybe that's why I didn't like them when I was younger.
You know, trade routes and taxation.
Boring. Even still, I find that boring. It's tax season. I don't want to do my taxes. I'm going to procrastinate on that.
Like, there's a lot of scenes in that Senate room.
Yeah.
For me, it's really interesting because I look at that and I look for the scheme that the Emperor, he's a puppeteer in that Senate room.
Right.
He's like, oh, don't give me absolute power, you know?
Right.
I didn't appreciate the politics side of things as much as a kid. I had to grow into that a little bit more in order for me to better appreciate those things.
Right.
Like, things I got as a kid was, look cool, Natalie Portman cute though, cool lightsaber stuff going on. Darth Sidious might be Palpatine, doing some puppeting stuff. I don't really understand it at all, but I think that's cool that he's scheming.
Right.
And as I grew up and developed, so did my outlook on Attack of the Clones and the plot of it and everything that was going on, the more and more I watched it.
Yeah, I think because I have rewatched this one several different times, I definitely appreciate now the political aspects of things, because the way that it was set up is how we then see it in 4, 5, and 6. Like, this is the beginning of the separation and like the division, and I like those things. Those are the little details that I like to try to find that bring me back to the original. And like I said about Phantom Menace, that's one of the reasons I don't like that movie, is because very little of it brings me back to that original trilogy feel. This was the first movie for me that was like, oh, especially as I grew up a little bit more and watched it, because I would rewatch the movies before the next one came out. So I was all set and ready. So again, by the time Revenge of the Sith came out, I was older. I watched Attack of the Clones and was like, this makes more sense. And it was just really cool to see one person kind of put two hands in the rice and then separate it. And you see that clear division between good and not so good. At the time, we thought it was like evil versus good, when in all actuality, it was just two sides with two different forms of communication. Palpatine's sitting there saying, they don't like you, fight them. And he's over here like, they don't like you, fight them.
He's inciting this war.
Yeah. Deliberate miscommunication to make sure they hate each other. It's like Batman versus Superman.
Exactly.
You've got Lex Luthor, who's literally saying to Superman, he hates you, kill him. And you got Lex Luthor saying to Batman, he's a god, kill him. And they're like, okay, let's kill each other. And that's what's happening here.
Another thing that I want to briefly touch on in Attack of the Clones is Jango Fett.
I don't like Jango Fett.
You don't like Jango Fett? Why don't you like Jango?
I think he's kind of a wuss.
He's kind of a wuss.
Yeah.
He had cool gadgets, though.
That's what makes him kind of a wuss. He has cool gadgets.
Batman has gadgets.
Okay, but Batman runs into the fight. I feel like there were times for me where Jango was like, I don't really want to deal with this. Deuces, until he sees like Mace Windu. He's like, yeah, this guy over here needs to die. I don't know. I think they could have played him up a little bit better.
I think he was trying to prevent them from figuring out what the plan was.
Yeah, but like, I don't know.
So, of course, you kind of had to run away.
I just think they killed him off a little too quickly, where I could have either would have liked to see more of him, or I would have liked to see a bigger character development, stronger character development before they killed him off. So I think what I'm trying to say as far as a wuss was more we mostly see Jango Fett in the background of things. Like, we see him for just a split second where he's talking to Obi-Wan. It's like a really quick conversation. He's kind of like alluding to things, but kind of deterring the conversation. Runs off. We see a small fight scene between Obi-Wan and him, and then we see a small fight scene between Mace Windu, and then he's dead. And I think either I would have liked to see more of him as a bounty hunter that kind of set the scene for bounty hunters.
I saw him as a consistent, mysterious presence in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he hired that initial assassin.
Right.
He killed said initial assassin. Obi-Wan follows the trail to Kamino, where Jango's hiding out, with his clone son, Boba. Obi-Wan follows him to Geonosis. From there, he gets captured. Then we have the gladiator scene. Jango's still there. Jango, for me, I see him throughout the movie as sort of like a mysterious middle ground character, I guess.
Right. I mean, as bounty hunters usually are.
He's playing that mercenary bounty hunter type role. That's what he does.
Right.
And he's working with Dooku.
What throws me off is his character just kind of seemed... Incompetent is not a good word, but his character just seemed a little bit lackluster. That's the word I'm looking for. And his son kind of played that up a little bit more because the lines just were kind of halfway done. Boba Fett's character and lines were the equivalent to Anakin and Phantom Menace. And Jango Fett's character and lines were kind of the same. Like, it just was a little unfinished. Like, it felt like it was just not a finished character.
So, in the black box of this movie, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think someone needs to get invested in Legends to get on board with what they did with a character. You know, if I only had this movie and The Mandalorian, I would wonder why we didn't do Jango more like The Mandalorian. I would have liked to see more from the Fett clan in general.
Well, I think that's something that we can kind of anticipate if they continue the Solo series, is learning a little bit more about Boba Fett.
I would like that. Any other final thoughts on Attack of the Clones before we wrap things up?
I definitely thought it was better than The Phantom Menace. I appreciated it more than I appreciate The Phantom Menace. I would much rather rewatch this one. It follows the story and it follows the kind of Star Wars pattern of the beginning, the middle, and the end of a trilogy kind of sequence where we have 4, 5, and 6. It has a very clear beginning story, middle story, and end story. And if you put all my personal feelings aside, it's a good middle story to this part of the trilogy.
That was really well said. I mean, I love the prequels in general. I'm not going to sit over here and explicitly rank them because they all have a different significance for me. Mm-hmm. I love this movie for the reasons that I've talked about before. It's world building.
Yeah.
After this movie, we had more Star Wars than we did before.
Right.
And we got to know the planets, the people, the politics, the cultures, the orders. We got to know all of these things a little bit more in this and unpack it.
Right.
We have another milestone in this, at least I saw it as a milestone, where we see the clone troopers and the Star Destroyers. Seeing those Star Destroyers and the clone troopers, that gives us like a milestone point, like, okay, this is where we're at now. Right. We know we're going to see those things again, or things that look like them again in episode 4.
Right.
It was really exciting to see that and know, okay, there's a mystery to be unwrapped here. How do we get from point A to point B? And that's probably the biggest thing that I love about Clone Wars.
Yeah.
That wraps up this episode of Pizza and Parsecs. I'm Dave.
I'm Liv.
And you can check out our show on bit.ly/Pizza and Parsecs pod or on your podcasting platform of choice. If you like what you hear, share it with a friend and follow us on our socials at Pizza and Parsecs. We would love to hear from you. Thanks again so much, guys, and may the Force be with you.
Like, their fight was really dope and entertaining, but too short. No pun intended.
Oh, shots fired against the little green dude.
He's not Baby Yoda, so he's not as cute. Baby Yoda is life.
When the Baby Yoda hits.
I love Baby Yoda. I sat there, I was like, we need to give Baby Yoda a lightsaber. Because that would just be the icing on top of the cake. Season 2 Mandalorian needs to have Baby Yoda with lightsaber. That is all. That is my only request. And chicken nuggies. Baby Yoda needs chicken nuggies.
Okay. All right.